Good evening, Unity on the Bay. Happy Monday to everybody if you're watching on Monday, and especially if you're with us tonight. I'm really excited about the book that I'm going to be exploring with you tonight. It's by, I think, one of the greatest authors, spiritual spokespersons of our time, and I think you'll agree once we get into it. He's also a very good friend of Unity on the Bay, so I've had the honor of meeting him. And his two sons, who are kind of carrying on what's regarded as the Toltec tradition. And that's a tradition of spiritual thought that was buried for many, many years, decades, centuries, and just came back to light when this book was published. Hello, Jason Weeks. I'm glad you've been looking forward to it. I have too. You know, I really enjoy this time of coming together. And if you're not familiar, if this should happen to be your first time on Shelf Discovery, let me explain that the reason that we call it Shelf Discovery is because I have this amazing magical bookshelf behind me that contains what to me have become my Bibles. I'm pretty select about the books that I choose to hold in my possession. I've been on kind of a minimalist trip for a number of years now, but there are those books that sort of have my DNA in them. And so we're going back and picking some of those books that in many cases I haven't seen or perused for a long time. And it's been really beneficial for me. I hope you're enjoying it too. But for me to go back and read some of these books and pull out the excerpts that I want to share with you on Monday nights has really been rewarding. I've sometimes said that I believe there are book gnomes that slip into my apartment in the wee hours of the night and rewrite the material that I read years ago, because there's stuff in these books that I swear I have not seen before. And I think that's indicative of this idea that we often share, that we are not capable of seeing what we're not ready to see. So there are times we might be reading a book, but there's pieces and parts of that book that we have not really taken in. And so when you go back and read it again, it's almost like reading the book for the first time. And you'll find all kinds of nuggets that you swear were not there before. So we meet every night, every Monday night at 6 p.m. on Facebook Live and YouTube. This is an interactive program. Jason has kicked it off just by letting us know he's here. Let me know you're here because I want you to get involved in this. You know, I've gradually been working out of this model, ironic though it may sound, because I'm standing in front of people frequently on Sunday mornings, broadcasting from a platform to an audience. But I really am more and more embracing this idea that we are all one another's teachers and students. And this experience, hi, Gloria. You saw the book. See, there are no accidents, Gloria. You saw the book and it was a sign. Hi, June. Lord, I miss you, June. It just seems like forever since I've seen you. Hi, Frankie. Thanks for being here. So this is interactive. And I believe that we are all each other's teachers and students. So I'm not here to profess knowledge that you don't already contain. And I believe that when we come together in an environment like this, where we can openly exchange perspectives, we really grow together. We teach each other and we learn from each other, and it's beautiful. Yeah, June, I do miss you, but best of everything. I'm really glad that you're here tonight. Thanks for joining Shelf Discussion. All right, so before I introduce the book, let me just tell you that for some time I've been looking at this idea of perfection, and I've noticed that, hi, Aaron Moore, love you with all my heart, you brilliant man. Soulful man, spiritual giant. Nice to have you here. I've been wrestling with the idea of what it means to be perfect. And I find myself sometimes hi, Cindy, love you. I find myself sometimes, what's the word I'm looking for? Being challenged when people say that we're not perfect, or that anything is imperfect. Because I believe that, as I understand the Unity principles, we're all created in the image and likeness of God, and that is pure perfection. And yet I also realize what's perceived as human frailties oftentimes do not seem perfect. So it's made me want to really look at what it is that I mean when I talk about perfection in any way. My question for you tonight would be, what's your idea of perfection? But before you share, let me tell you the book that we're discussing, which you already know because now I realize it's in the title, is The Four Agreements. Now, this book has been out for quite a while, but I still say it's one of the time-tested best books on spiritual understanding from a very practical perspective. And I think the way that Don Miguel, the author, puts the message together is so practical and in such layman terminology. Oftentimes we get into spiritual books and it's like we're scratching our head trying to figure out what it means. You may scratch your head occasionally at this book, but it is so simply and purely written. If you don't know about Don Miguel Ruiz, he was raised in the Toltec tradition by his mother and father. They always thought that he would become a messenger of the revival of the ancient Toltec teaching, which is what this book is all about. But he didn't really see it that way. He was pursuing a career as a medical professional until he had a near fatal automobile accident. And he said he had what's it referred to, near-death experience. And it really woke him up and he decided, hey, Carmen. Hello, Reverend Christopher Jackson. Yeah, I go by both names. So he had this sort of awakening by virtue of a near-death experience. And in that awakening, he really began to pursue what he calls self-inquiry, which is a popular term for looking in more deeply inside of ourselves for the answers to life and for self-understanding and understanding of this whole human predicament, that the answers are within. So he's about self-inquiry. And he uses a term that, while I find it a little bit painful to share, which I've done many times, it stings a little bit. I think it's really spot on. The term is what he calls human domestication. He says that we are domesticated no differently from a dog, a cat, an animal of any kind that we would seek to bring into our environment, and that we do this by a process of punishment and reward. In our younger years, from authority figures, parents, religious authorities. And he believes that part of this process of human domestication involves the passing on of our, hi Maria, nice to have you here. The passing on of our idea of what perfection is from generation to generation. Hi Israel, glad you're here. Passing this on, this idea of perfection from generation to generation. And there's many different versions of it because everybody has a different idea of what it means to be perfect. But I really like this. It spoke to me. It was something I had not highlighted in this book before, and I did this morning as I was contemplating what I wanted to share with you. So here we go, in the words of Don Miguel Ruiz in the phenomenal book, The Four Agreements. He says, during the process of domestication, we form an image of what perfection is in order to try to be good enough. We create an image of how we should be in order to be accepted by everybody. We especially try to please the ones who love us, like mom and dad, big brothers and sisters, the priests and the teacher. Trying to be good enough for them, we create an image of perfection, but we don't fit this image. We create this image, but this image is not real. We are never going to be perfect from this point of view. Never. Not being perfect, we reject ourselves. And the level of self-rejection depends on how effective the adults were in breaking our integrity. Those are strong words. Yeah, Jason, I catch myself doing it too, people pleasing, trying more than to understand another person, to perhaps understand their idea of what they're expecting from me and what will allow me to be approved of in their eyes. So that's a strong sentence that he just put out there. Not being perfect, we reject ourselves, and the level of self-rejection depends upon how effective the adults were in breaking our integrity. After domestication, it is no longer about being good enough for anybody else. We are not good enough for ourselves because we don't fit with our own image of perfection. We cannot forgive ourselves for not being what we wish to be, or rather, what we believe we should be. We cannot forgive ourselves for not being perfect. We know we are not what we believe we are supposed to be, and so we feel false, frustrated, and dishonest. We try to hide ourselves, and we pretend to be what we are not. Say that again. We pretend to be what we are not. The result is that we feel unauthentic and wear social masks to keep others from noticing this. We are so afraid that somebody else will notice that we are not what we pretend to be. We judge others according to our image of perfection as well. And naturally, they fall short of our expectations. So I think that's just loaded, my friends. It's loaded with an understanding of the purpose, and I'll say an erroneous understanding, that the purpose of life is to understand what other people's ideals are and then seek to live up to them in an effort to be approved of. I'm really interested in your ideas about this. How do you perceive perfection? What do you think about what he's saying regarding this human domestication process? Hey, Francesca, happy Monday night to you. What do you think about this whole idea of the human domestication being the process by which we are given models, ideals that we are expected to live up to in order to receive approval? Now, I consider myself to be a loving, genuine parent. When I look back on this, I realize that both on my own behalf and behalf of all of the generations that have preceded me, I too passed on idyllic behavior based on my own human domestication that I was expecting my children to adhere to. Actually, if you look at our educational systems, while there is a level of information and knowledge being communicated, the way it's communicated and the package that it comes in, which is all the do's and don'ts and rights and wrongs, and that put us in the position of being subject to other people's scrutiny and either approval or disapproval. It's pretty amazing that any of us can discover within us what's really important to us, who we really are, and how we're going to bring that into authentic expression in the world. For most of my life, and I want to know what you think about this too, for most of my life, if I'm really honest, I look back and I see that I did buy into the social norms and the human domestication or conditioning that I was brought up in. I mean, when you're a child, it's difficult not to adhere to the rules. It's difficult to be a spontaneous, free and open spirit when you're in the presence of all these opinions about how you ought to be, how you should be acting, and so forth. And we carry that right into our adulthood more than we realize. Ruiz says later on in the same chapter of this book that most of us are completely unaware of this conditioning. We're reactive and we can't find, really, not to be too strong about it, but an ounce of originality within us by the time we're through this domestication machine. So I don't know how you feel in terms of the way your life is showing up right now, but my encouragement is that we would all be better off if we could begin to be open to identifying those patterns and expectations and ideas and ideals that were passed on to us. And understand, this was given to us by well-intended people. I intended the best for my children, but I also sent them to school, and I also held them to certain standards. It seems like it would be almost impossible not to, as opposed to, even if you're doing that at the same time, to be able to say, look, I'm giving you the rules for this world, which is a world of human domestication. But please understand that what I want from you is your truest and most authentic self. Jason says, having studied biology, I think domestication plays an important part in us as a species. Being able to cooperate with each other, it's a way of us to behave on the community level. However, it's a real pain in the arse on the individualism level. If we didn't have domestication, we might all be monkeys running around pooping, pooping in the streets. Thank you, Jason. I appreciate that. I appreciate you and your humor at the same time. It's true, and if I'm coming across like, this is all the evil doings of poorly intentioned people, it's actually been our means to survival. And it does play an important role. What I believe Ruiz is talking about, what I'm trying to express tonight, is that we have to find a point of balance so that we are understanding the importance of our being able to cooperate as a species and as a body of individual players and parts and pieces. At the same time, realizing how important it is to maintain our integrity as we do that. And even when we are operating in behaviors that have been passed on to us, are we able to recognize that that's what that is? So is it a conscious intent on our part to realize we're seeking to cooperate with something here that benefits the whole? Or are we not? Are we simply moving blindly through the conditioned behavior that we've received, acting out of domestication that we're not even aware of? Hi, Sonia. Let me get back to this idea of perfection too, because I really think this is important. I believe there's probably as many definitions of perfection as there are people on the planet. Every one of us has a different idea, subject to what we've been conditioned to believe, and also subject to what we think right now. That what one person would hold as a behavior in high esteem, another person would condemn. Are we not seeing this everywhere in our society right now, where we're praising people who get vaccinated and condemning those who don't? And I'm not saying one way or the other what's right or wrong. I'm just saying we're still doing it to each other. Russell Charles, I love you, my brother. Are you in Miami or are you up in New York? I don't recall. You've been a little difficult to track lately, but it's great to have you here. Wherever you are, you're here right now. So what is your idea of perfection? Come on, folks, where are you? What's your idea of perfection? What's your idea? Do you think that we are all perfect? Do you believe that it is possible to be perfectly imperfect? That's something I'm resonating with a little bit more these days. Jason is back again. I love you, Jason. You always keep the conversation rolling. And hi, Mary McHenry. Love you, my dear. Miss you. Haven't seen you in a while, but I know you've been busy off here and there and everywhere. Let's see. Jason says, I like Neil Donald Walsh's definition of perfection. He says, the definition of perfection is that which actually gets done. That which actually gets done, which is accomplished. Thank you, Jason. I appreciate that. And Russell, I'm glad you're back home in Miami. If you're just joining us, we're strolling through the pages of The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, one of my all-time favorite books. I had to go through a little forgiveness here because I had my original copy of this book that had been, like so many of my books or my what I call Bibles, had been heavily worn and extensively read, earmarked, highlighted. And it was in my office and it just vanished one day. So I had to get a new one and I'm starting over again, which, I'm sure there's a universal reason for that. But at any rate, oh, hi, Dale, AKA Unity on the Bay. That's interesting. You can't seem to post as yourself. Well, I can appreciate that. I went through a period of time where when I would post something on Facebook, I didn't know whether it was going to show up as Chris Jackson or as Unity on the Bay. And finally, I showed up as Unity on the Bay so much that I sort of withdrew from too much participation or responses anyway on Facebook. But we got that fixed. Jason says, I catch myself comparing my life with an ideal of life that I should be living. It causes me so much stress. Oh, Jason, I don't think anybody here can probably relate to that. Chuckle, chuckle. Is there perfection where there is absolute truth? Thank you, Mary. You're so brilliant. And I believe there is. And I believe there is absolute truth everywhere. And I believe that the imperfection shows up when we begin to bring our judgments and our condemnatory thinking into play. But if you're in accord with Unity teaching, the 5 principles, which I have often said are actually only one principle, and that is God is absolute good everywhere present. If that's the case, then I would say we are in the midst of perfection ever and always. But we're not aware of that. We cannot perceive that because of the filters of our own judgment, often condemnatory in nature, that we've put across the lenses of our own eyes. So we're not able to see what is really there. We're seeing what we have put there in its stead. Hey, I'm grateful for everybody coming up here. I wanted to go back, Jason, to what you said. I think, seriously, you're not alone, and we all catch ourselves comparing our lives with an ideal that we should be living. And I think that's part of self-acceptance. It reminds me of Elizabeth Longo. Some of you will get a kick out of this. Elizabeth Longo used to do these, and she still does, I think, these tapping exercises. EFT, emotional, somebody knows what that means. Emotional something technique. But she would stand up in front of a group or retreat on Sunday morning. She would be tapping herself as prescribed by EFT, and she would say, I love and accept myself exactly as I am. I love and accept myself exactly as I am. And I thought that was beautiful, because that really, to me, is the ability to perceive perfection even in what might be perceived as imperfection. Wow, you're going so fast here ahead of me now. I got to back up. Let's see. June Collins, have a card, Chris, and we'll send it to you regarding perfection. Please do. I would love that, June, and I'd love to hear from you. I realize, Gloria says, that as a child, I wanted to be perfect, to feel loved by my parents. We all do. And again, I don't think this is an intentional ploy on anybody's part, especially our loving parents. They were given these standards and these objectives as well. And some of them, as Jason said earlier, are beneficial to our being able to continue to function as a society. But a lot of them can prohibit or inhibit us from really being ourselves. If you've ever noticed, there's few things on the planet more powerful than a person who is tapped in to their own standards. And this is another piece I'll just throw in here, is I believe that there is innate within every one of us, and this is very Tao Te Ching-y, if you were with us when we studied that book. There's a pattern within every one of us, a natural pattern of cooperation and harmony. And it's possible for that to evolve. At the same time, the human domestication is taking place. And I think it behooves us to allow our children, encourage our children to express that natural, really it's natural perfection that's within us. And I relate to that, Gloria. We all wanted to feel loved, to be loved. We were loved, but to have that acknowledgement. It's there's a validation. Lord, I've spent a lot of my life trying to seek validation. Aaron says, I agree with the idea of human domestication. To me, that speaks to behavior, and it is my belief that we are not what we do. Amen to that, Aaron. I believe it is our behavior that is judged, and we are identified as that. I believe what we are is perfect expressions of one divine truth. I know this is one point of view. True. It is also the point of view of Unity, as you well know, Aaron, and probably most of you as well recognize that. Let me catch up here just a little bit. Emotional freedom. Thank you. Freedom technique, EFT, emotional freedom technique. Thanks. I knew you all would have the answer to that. Tapping, right. It's tapping. Thank you, Aaron. Yes, that's true. You know, what we are, even more than who we are, what we are is divine spirit in perfection. What we do is a set of actions that may or may not reflect the true identity of our nature. I think that's true. So again, my friends, the name of the book is The 4 Agreements. You can pick it up on Amazon if you don't already have it. And if you do have it, I would encourage you to do what I did this morning, which is pick it up again. It's the kind of book that will speak to you. The book is the same as maybe the last time you read it, but you're not the same. I'm not the same. And I believe you'll find all kinds of pearls and gems nestled into these pages that can really benefit you immensely. The 4 Agreements. Be impeccable with your word. Don't take anything personally. Easy peasy, huh? Oh, so easy. Oh, so breezy. Don't take anything personally. Don't make assumptions. And always do your best. Jason, I like that saying. I like him, but I don't like his behavior. Puts it in perspective. Amen. And a great note to end this evening on. Thank you all so much for being a part of this. I just love these get-togethers and look forward to being with you again next Monday evening. Shelf Discovery, 6 p.m., Facebook Live, and YouTube. Have a wonderful evening, my friends. I love you all very, very much and wish you a blessed evening and a great day tomorrow. Be well.